Hello travelers and tourists, my name is Mark and I am the local disaster tour guide. That's right, I am a storyteller who is about to engage in some wild speculation. Bad pun, fully intended. Welcome to a journey through the fantastic world of TTRPGs like Pathfinder and Starfinder, and welcome to a speculation video. It is Friday evening, and earlier today, Paizo announced one of their new products that will be coming out in 2024 called Howl of the Wild. Now, in the previews that we have seen so far, we know that this book is going to center around nature in various ways, and it is going to be inspired by a lot of the amazing things that animals can do in the real world. For example, we already know that there will be a songbird that takes the real-world ability to mimic sounds and turns it into the fantastical ability to mimic spells. Obviously, Paizo is going to be having a lot of fun with this book, and there have been a number of announcements already made. For example, we already know that the Centaur and Minotaur will both be playable ancestries in this book. By the way, if you're interested in these announcements, I will be throwing a link in the video description so you can check them out for yourself, and I also anticipate that we will get some more interesting information come PaizoCon at the end of this month. However, given that we have this interesting news that has been dropped in our laps, clearly the time has come to do what gamers do best, and that is speculate on what amazing new toys Paizo is going to be sending our way next year. Now, I will apologize up front, as I was not planning on recording a video this evening. This video is a little bit of a hasty product, and my face will not be appearing on screen. I'll try to throw some art and other just conjecture stuff up on the screen so you have something to look at. But I imagine this video is by and large going to be something that you can just casually listen to as I speculate on what might be inside of Howl of the Wild. Of course, if you enjoy this video, you should definitely do all of that YouTube stuff. Remember to like, share, subscribe, check out my Discord and my Patreon. All of those things help to support the channel, especially when I'm trying to put out surprise videos, because Paizo, for some reason, keeps giving us all of the tasty news before PaizoCon. Seriously, Paizo, do you realize how much you are messing with my filming schedule? Anyways, with all of that out of the way, let's get started. So for this video, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be offering some speculations about what might be inside of Howl of the Wild next year. The first three items of speculation are going to be a little more general, and then for the last four, we're going to get into my thoughts on the biggest item that has been teased so far, with Paizo's announcement that there will be new ancestry options in this particular book. But we'll get to those later. Let's start with some of my general thoughts about what Howl of the Wild might entail. Okay, so my first piece of speculation for Howl of the Wild comes with the two ancestries that have already been announced. We've been told that the Centaur and the Minotaur will both be featured in this book as playable ancestries, and it has already been mentioned that the Centaur is associated with the continent of Casmaron, and the Minotaur is associated with a region of the world of Golarion known as Iblados. Notably, both of these regions exist outside of the Inner Sea region. And if you go back to Guns and Gears, you may remember that Paizo offered their first serious look at the continent of Arcadia in that particular book, giving Paizo fans their first real taste for a region that had gone largely unexplored in terms of Pathfinder 2e content. Well, Centaurs are from Casmaron, which also really hasn't been explored, and Iblados has only been mentioned in passing in Paizo products thus far. So one of the things I think we can easily expect with this product is kind of like Paizo did with Guns and Gears, to see Paizo exploring the Golarion campaign setting a little bit more, diving into some of the lesser known regions of the world where some of these nature-based ancestries might be from. I think this is a pretty easy prediction, but I also am excited to see Paizo stepping outside of the Inner Sea region and giving us at least a small taste of some of the other areas that exist inside the Golarion setting. So First thing I expect, Paizo is going to explore some areas outside of the Inner Sea region alongside of their discussion of the fantastical natural elements inside this book. Item number 2. If you take a look at the short fiction that Paizo used to tease this new book, Howl of the Wild, there is something that is mentioned almost casually, and that is an airship. Now, allow me to be very clear. Airships do exist inside of Pathfinder 2e lore and mechanics. They can be found in the Game Mastery Guide, but to be honest, airships is something we really haven't seen in a lot of Paizo's official products. It's a fun element of fantasy gaming, to be sure, and while they have given us some ideas about airships in the past, they really haven't done a lot with it in terms of their setting. However, an airship is a really strange thing to drop a mention of when you're doing a book about nature. And if this book takes an exploration theme, which I think is very possible, then airships could fit pretty easily into an explorer's motif. Now, pair this with the fact that the Pathfinder 2e Remaster Game Master Core, we already know that book is going to feature expanded and updated rules for vehicles, and personally, I think that Paizo might be planning some fun things with airships and might be presenting some new options for storytelling and gameplay through these fantastic vehicles that we see in a lot of fantasy games. I feel like Paizo dropped that airship hint for a reason. Now we move on to item number 3, and to be honest, this probably isn't wild speculation. This is probably boring, predictable speculation, but at the bare minimum, I do think that there are some exciting things to talk about here. I think it is very likely that Paizo is going to offer some expanded ancestry options related to some of the more nature-themed ancestries inside of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Now, there are a few different animal-themed ancestries you can find inside of Pathfinder 2e, and some of them, such as the Catfolk or Amurin, have pretty good support inside of the game, but there are other animal-themed ancestries that honestly don't have much content. A good example would be the Gripply from the Mwange Expanse. The Frogfolk certainly have some nice artwork, but I feel like there's a lot of room for growth with that particular ancestry, and I could see Paizo approaching some of the animal-themed ancestries inside of the game and looking for ways to add options. So when you look at ancestries such as Catfolk, Tengu, Anadi, or maybe the Shuni, these ancestries all have room for growth, and some ancestries, like the Kashrishi that I famously am very disappointed with, they could all use some expanded support, and Howl of the Wild seems like a product where some of these less represented ancestries could get some really fun options inside the game. Again, I think this is a pretty easy prediction to make. I don't think I'm shocking anyone with this prediction, but still, I think there is a lot of fun speculation we can do here. And another rules element that I could see also getting some expansion is the Beastkin Versatile Heritage. I really think we're going to see some support for that as well. But let's dive into the fun part of this video, because Paizo has specifically announced that there will be 6 new playable ancestries in Howl of the Wild. 2 of them we already know with the Centaur and the Minotaur, but that leaves 4 slots wide open. So what I would like to do here is talk about 4 suggestions of different ancestries I think Paizo could potentially feature in this book. Now, obviously, I don't work for Paizo. I don't know if this is real or not. These are just my wild thoughts. 2 of these items are going to represent what I think are noticeable gaps in the options that Paizo has, and then 2 of the options I will present are a little more based in Golarion lore and what I think that this book might feature, but all 4 of these are things that I would really love to see. Up first on my list of possible ancestries, let's talk about a noticeable gap in Pathfinder 2e's ancestry options and offer a speculation of some kind of bird folk. Honestly, at this point, I don't care what kind of bird folk you add to the game. This is just something I feel like Paizo needs to include. There are very few things that I think D&D has done better than Paizo when it comes to presentation of their role-playing game, but when it comes to winged ancestries, D&D has things like the Aarakocra and the Owlin, and both of those are very interesting, whereas if you want to play a character with wings in Pathfinder 2e, oftentimes it's a very niche element of the rules. Yes, the Tengu are considered birdfolk, but there's only a single heritage of Tengu that can actually get wings. And while the Strix are technically a winged PC race, they would not be considered birdfolk. They kind of have their own unique lore. So oftentimes, if you want to play a character who has wings, you need to play something like an Azamar or a Tiefling and take some of the versatile heritage feats that would give you access to wings. The concept of a clean and clear, flight-focused birdfolk is just honestly something that is lacking in Pathfinder 2e, and I think it is an obvious gap in the ancestry options inside the game. So if you don't want to step outside official products and look at something like the Gumayun from Battlezoo Bestiary, then I think adding some kind of birdfolk to Howl of the Wild is just an obvious inclusion here. Now, figuring out what kind of bird they might theme this potential ancestry around is a little bit trickier because you do have some established ideas in other TTRPGs, but I still think there's plenty of creative room here for something like an eagle folk or a falcon folk that could make for an interesting addition to the game and fit a neat mechanical niche. For my next prediction, this is probably my wildest prediction, but let's just be honest, I grew up on cartoons in the 90s, and Pathfinder 2e needs turtle folk. I'm sorry, I need the ability to play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I want a party that consists of an Ahsoka and his 4 turtle proteges. This needs to happen. We need turtle folk. Turtles exist in D&D, and are they the most mechanically powerful? Probably not, but it's just fun. It is a trope that a lot of people love, and while I don't really see any Golarion lore related to turtle folk, it's just something I want, so I'm going to throw the wild speculation out there. I think one of our new ancestries is going to be turtle folk of some kind. Now, yes, I am being silly in making reference to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles here, but considering how Paizo likes to approach their ancestries, I do think you could have some serious conversations about this. One of the recent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoons approached each of the 4 turtles basing it around a different type of turtle. And when you have things like box turtles and snapping turtles and these different varieties of creatures, that's the kind of creative stuff that Paizo likes to play with. So I do think Paizo could take a pretty interesting shot at turtle folk as a playable ancestry. It is something I would like to see. But for my next 2 predictions on what ancestries might be featured in Howl of the Wild, these are a little more based on Golarion lore and what I think Paizo might be playing around with. The first one I want to talk about, this actually comes from one of the members of my home game. We were kicking around different ideas and kind of laughing and saying, oh, it could be this or it could be that. And one of my players brought up the idea of insect folk of some kind. And we do know that in Starfinder, you have species such as the Shirin that are a core part of the game. So insect folk is something that Paizo has played around with in some of their publications, and it is a concept that is relatively lacking in Pathfinder 2e. Right now, if you wanted to play a character that had some kind of insectile heritage, you're probably going to be playing either a beastkin of some kind, or maybe doing something weird with a flesh warp. Outside of the Anati, which is probably not technically insect folk, you really don't have that insectile style of character available. So when my player mentioned insect folk of some kind, that immediately jumped out to me as like, hey, that is a pretty serious thought. That is something Paizo could do. And then I realized Paizo actually has a group of creatures in their lore that we know exist that could easily be added to the game as a playable ancestry. In fact, it is a playable ancestry in Starfinder already. That is the Formians. This is a relatively easy ancestry that Paizo could work into their lore and into their game, and the weird mechanical issues that a Formian might represent for Pathfinder 2e, honestly, the Centaur presents the exact same problems, so if Paizo is willing to tackle the Centaur, I imagine they would also be willing to tackle the Formian, and I think this is just a very easy ancestry option that could be added to the game. It wouldn't shake up the lore much at all, and I think it could be pretty interesting. But now I would like to come to the biggest prediction I have in this video, and this is in some ways a long shot, but the possibilities here are at least interesting enough that I want to throw this conversation out there. What if Paizo is adding Serpent folk as a playable ancestry to Pathfinder 2e? Now, really quick, there are two Ophidian-themed ancestries already in the game, that is the Vishkanya and the Nagaji. However, I think it's important to note that Serpent folk are a distinct ancestry of their own in terms of Paizo lore. Vishkanya and Nagaji are separate from Serpent folk, who have their own history and culture, and this is where it gets fun for me, rumored empire. Now, we don't know exactly where or exactly what the Serpent folk empire would look like. This is a well-guarded secret in Pathfinder lore, though there have been some tantalizing hints here and there. Truth be told, all we know is it's out there somewhere. And part of me wonders if Howl of the Wild could offer an exploration of this enigmatic ancestry that has been teased many times in Paizo products but never properly explored. To give you an idea of just one option Paizo has, there is a mysterious continent on Golarion called Sarusan that nobody has ever successfully returned from. If people have made it to the island, they've never made it back. And rumors around this island are multitude, but one of the notable rumors is the Serpent Folk Empire controls the island and just kills anybody who shows up so that the secrets of their empire can't be revealed. Going back to what I mentioned earlier, I think it is very probable that this book is going to offer an exploration of Kazmaron and Iblados and maybe some other lesser-known regions of Golarion, so who's to say that they might not also give us a few glimpses onto this mysterious and previously unexplored continent as well? I think it's perfectly possible. But whether or not you think that Paizo might actually give us an idea of what can be found on Sarusan, I still think it is very plausible that Paizo could pull back the curtain just a little bit on an often teased but thus far unexplored ancestry of the Serpent folk. So anyways, those are just my wild speculations about Howl of the Wild. This video is being recorded the day that the announcement was made, and I imagine that other teases will probably drop in the days to come. So I expect that I will probably be revisiting this topic probably sometime after PaizoCon. But for the moment, we can have some fun and take some time speculating on what Paizo might have to offer with this new book that's going to be coming out next year. So let me turn the conversation over to you. Are you excited for Howl of the Wild, and what kind of content do you expect to see in this nature-themed product that Paizo is bringing us? What regions of Golarion or mechanical concepts do you expect them to explore? And what do you think these 4 as of yet unannounced ancestries might be? Jump down to the comment section and let me know what you think. Seriously, the best part of this job is getting to interact with you. And don't forget to do all of that other YouTube stuff that helps support the channel. A like, a share, a subscribe, checking out Discord and Patreon. Those are the things that help to keep this channel growing, and I appreciate everything that you do. But as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. Have a wonderful day.